And you certainly kind of got baptized by old school hockey pretty early on in your
Too
NHL
early.
career. Yeah, I bet. I do want to get to that. But first, it is the Wicked Boston show. All right, Jeremy. So we got to go back to your roots a little bit. Down on the South Shore, Marsh, Vegas, Thayer Academy. And you were actually drafted in the top 10, which back then never happened.
Especially as a
American
high school
players,
kid.
high school kid. Yeah, like that does not happen. It helps that you and another NHL great from the time, Tony Amonte, you guys are playing on the same line together.
Mhm.
What was that like in high school? I mean, were you guys just putting up video game numbers?
Dominant. I mean, it was like, well, first of all, Thayer, we were two-time New England prep school champions, and we lost in the finals of our third year. I only went to 3 years of high school with Tony. I turned pro after our junior year. Tony went on to go to his senior year and then do a year at BU before he came into the league. But the two of us were so dominant, you couldn't beat us because of the two of us. Um, one of the best skaters, one of the best goal scorers I ever played with, Tony Monty. He's like my soulmate of wingers. I mean, where else do you play with somebody before high school? You play with somebody at high school, then you play with that same person in the pros on two different teams. I mean, Tony and I have a very unique and strong bond that was formed in high school at Thayer Academy. And I was very small. I was 150, 155 pounds when I got drafted. And you're right, it was not a very popular thing for the league to pick high school kids, especially ones that you could probably pick up with one hand and throw them off to the side, like me, like I was.
Yeah, man.
But I decided to leave and turn pro after my junior year and take my shot at it. It was a rocky first year. I played 24 games in the league my first year, had 20 points, and kind of established myself as someone that could play in the league at a small size. Mike Keenan made sure that I was mean and hit hard and skated as fast as I could to generate as much momentum to overcompensate for how small I was. But I learned to love to hit. Unfortunately, I had to learn to fight, because when you hit hard, you're going to get confronted with a lot of people, especially at that time in the National Hockey League. I mean, I fought Bob Probert a couple times. I fought Martin McSorley a couple times. I fought some of the toughest guys in the game because I was as physical as I was. But I had to. I had to do that in order to be successful. And I guess turned out to be one of those real positive attributes of my game that people enjoyed and that I enjoyed.
Yeah. This is going to be a dumb question because you just talk about fighting McSorley and Probert, but were there any guys that you were like, I can't go there. I
Yeah.
can't do
There was
that
one guy. Yeah, I would never fight Tye Domi. I would never fight Tye Domi for so many different reasons. Number one, because and he's a very good friend of mine. I love Tye Domi with all my heart, but he just seemed like he didn't have all of his screws in place. A couple of his screws loose. A guy that enjoyed fighting as much as Tye did. A guy that looked like um, he could, like just a rabid pit bull on the ice, right? And a guy who had a Teflon head that every time you hit it, he got happier. I was like, no way am I going near a guy like Tye Domi. And by the way, Tye Domi is one of the best player fighters that we've ever seen in the game. For the longest period of time, Tye Domi played more Toronto playoff games than anybody. As a guy that was known as a tough guy, the guy could play the game, and that's why he has so much respect around the game, and so much respect still after he played, for not only his toughness and his fighting, but being a player that you can put on the ice pretty much in any situation.
And going back to the early Chicago days, right? Earliest part of your career in the NHL, late 80s, early 90s, Iron Mike was typically Mike Tyson, but I think you had a different idea of Iron Mike
Mhm.
playing for Mike Keenan. Misunderstood could be a way to
Mhm.
categorize him in a way. He's very divisive when it comes to guys who played for him. So take me through
Yep.
that experience. Again, this is the
Yeah.
155-pound kid who does a
Yep.
little bit of the Q after leaving BC, and now
Yep.
Mike Keenan is your coach.
Well, there was sometimes in my early career that I would have rather been in a ring with Mike Tyson than in an office with Mike Keenan. he was one of those very intimidating figures that ruled with an iron fist. Mike Keenan was a guy that demanded hard work, demanded toughness, demanded you play through pain and injury, was everything about the team, and was a guy that, to tell you the truth, was he didn't want anybody to feel comfortable in the locker room. He kept it uncomfortable all the time. His comment to me all the time is comfort leads to complacency. And when you're complacent, you lose. So I can't tell you how many times we had fights in the locker rooms, how many times we had fights in practice, because Mike would just keep us on edge all the time, whether it was his yelling, whether it was calling us names, whether it was making us skate, whether it was making us practice on days we wanted days off. But one thing about Mike is he was always there if you needed him. If you needed some advice or you need some life help or um, some work on something, you can always go in and talk to him. And he pretty much he created the player that I became, and he supported me through thick and thin when I was doing well on the ice. He was great supportive when I wasn't doing well on the ice. He kicked me in the ass, but he also helped me, socially away from the rink, family wise. And I'll never forget him for that. But his record speaks for himself.
Yeah, he won pretty much everywhere he went, and that includes Russia as well. And won a championship in the KHL. Was there any like crazy off the charts Mike Keenan story that you could tell of like this moment I just was in a pretzel?
There was Mike Keenan every year, because he knew he was so tough, and he knew that there was half the players in the team that liked him and half the players that hated him. He would always walk into the locker room one practice day, and he'd walk into the locker room with all his gear on, and he'd be like, "All right, you MFers, here's your only chance. It's scrimmage day." And Mike, we would go up in scrimmage for 30, 40 minutes, and Mike would literally play 20 minutes on one team and then switch jerseys and would go play 20 minutes on the other team to let everybody have the opportunity to, get their licks in on Mike. And Mike was a pretty good player. I mean, he played in college, he could skate. But I will tell you, when you got near Mike, if you were going to take the chance to go put a good lick on him, hit him, slash him, punch him, you were going to feel some pain because that stick was going to be chopping. His gloves were going to be wailing. He was going to do anything he can to make sure that he defended himself and that he fought and played the game his way, the way that he wanted us to play the game. And after every game, we get down to the locker room. There's some people with blood on their face. There's some people with, obviously sitting in their stalls, either happy that they got Mike or disappointed that they didn't. Mike would always walk back into the locker room and said, "Well, I'm still here, you effers. See you tomorrow." Right.
I mean, that's a way to back it up.
It was a fun time. That's a perfect kind of rendition of Mike Keenan.
Yeah. And looking at, the teams you played for in the early days, obviously Chicago, you go to Phoenix and then Philadelphia. I think the NHL probably has a fair reputation of being behind the times sometimes culturally and, the kind of what they expect from their players entertainment wise. You kind of broke the mold a little. Let your personality show. And that's why I think a lot of these kids looked up and said, I want to be like Jeremy Roenick. But you come into a time where it's a smaller NHL. You're playing for an original six franchise at the beginning. Do you feel like you were kind of breaking a mold without even knowing
100%,
it?
100%. Well, I see it now. I see, when I go to games now, I see players throwing pucks over the glass to kids, right? When I came into the league in 1988, that was not done. The pucks were there for warmups. The team would actually get mad when pucks were thrown into the stands because it hurt their puck budget. Their budget for pucks was raised for sure. But I started throwing pucks. I stayed late after warmups, and I'd throw pucks to kids sitting there, and I understood that that we are an entertainment. People are coming to watch us. They're coming to have an experience with us, whether it's one that we notice or one that gets personal, but it is definitely one that is professional. And I understood that, we're in the entertainment business. I want to give the best product for someone who's spending their hard-earned money to come and watch us. I also understood that the media had a purpose. They're there to report on us, to bring what's happening with us to the masses, to the fans, to the people. So in order to give them the truth or give them something that was worth reading, you had to be honest. And I had no problem. I love that aspect. And yes, it brought a lot of attention to me. And sometimes it was attention that my other teammates didn't really respect or didn't think that was necessary. But they would have been just as fine, just, never being noticed, never being seen, playing in an empty building and going home and having dinner and going to sleep and never enjoying the accolades of what it's like to have fans in the building. Sports is pro sports because people pay their hard-earned money to come sit in the building to watch us perform. Period. End of sentence. Pro sports would not be pro sports without fans. And I understood that. And I wanted to give them something fun. I wanted to give them something to get mad at. I wanted them to something maybe to have a conversation about. I wanted something to put a smile on people's faces. And I had no problem being a little crazy, a little outlandish, sometimes stupid, sometimes controversial, because it also got me motivated. It pumped me up for games. My adrenaline got flowing because of that attitude. Should everybody do that? Probably not. It's not, but we do need some personalities. And we have a few of them in the league right now. Matthew Tkachuk is one of those guys. Jack Hughes is one of those guys. We just had PK in the league that was one of those guys. We can't be afraid to come out and be expressive and be fun and be, and help the league, because that's pretty much what we do is we help promote the league. And you know what? If you don't like it, go watch another sport.
And that led to a lot for you. You are obviously one of the most beloved players in the NHL, but in a lot of cities you were hated because of the way you played, because of how you beat some teams, because of what you said afterwards. So was that something you were just comfortable with, of like, hey, not everyone's going to like me?
I didn't want everybody to like me. I mean, I think that's number one. It's not possible.
Right.
It's an unattainable goal. It allowed me to be who I was because I could say something and know that at least 50% of the people are going to like what I said. And then 50% won't. So, for that reason, I was always going to be protected in one place. So, but I don't want somebody from another team or fans from another team liking me or not booing me, because that means I'm pretty much I'm ineffective. That I didn't do anything to, that impress them or hurt their team.
They don't boo nobodies. That's what they say, right? They don't boo
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing about hockey, and this is fan across the board, whether it's America or Canada. They might hate me and hate what I did on the ice. But when I see them in public or I run into somebody, they're so gracious and, very complimentary and, great career. It's nice meeting you. We hated you when you played for the Flyers. We hated you when you played for the Chicago. And, that's all that really matters is if you have respect for somebody, that's really what it's all about. And I've found there's a lot of respect that has been given to me over the years. And for that, I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, they probably say, yeah, we hated you, but the chuckle comes afurwards. So it's
of course,
I love it.
Yeah, I say thank you. It's the best compliment, and especially in Toronto. After I knocked them out in 2004, which is one of the best goals of all time for me. It's fun going up to Toronto and being reminded of that goal pretty much every single day of my trips through Ontario, which makes me very happy.
I mean, unbelievable, iconic. You and Eruzione doing that kind of dance. I mean, it's great. Just a couple more for you. You've been so generous with your time here, JR. So I really, really appreciate that. I do want to talk about the Hall of Fame a little bit. It's something that has, you're now in class of 2024. belated congratulations there.
Thank you.
It I think most hockey fans would agree it took longer than it should have. That's obviously something you can't control. But we see it in baseball sometimes now. We saw it with Kurt Schilling to the point where he was like, "Don't even vote for me. I don't want this in my life anymore." Was there ever a moment that you had that thought of like, you know what, I don't need the Hall of Fame? People remember how great
Yeah,
a
I was
player I
there.
was.
I was
You were
there.
there.
Oh, 100% there. And actually, in 2024 was really the first year that I pretty much put it out of my mind. I didn't want to be asked about it. I didn't want to think about it. I had pretty much resorted myself to thinking I was going to be the Pete Rose of hockey, right? They'll put me in when I'm dead. And yes, I was definitely, it bothered me. I was definitely spiteful because of it. Now, looking back, should I have been? Maybe, because, was my career a first ballot? Maybe not a first ballot, but it wasn't 12 years, in my opinion. But when I come to think about everything, it's like, what makes a Hall of Famer? And what makes a Hall of Famer is not so much just what you do on the ice, but it's who you portray off the ice. And I don't think I was the greatest portrayer of maybe a Hall of Famer in all aspects of my life. And I had to really do some big soul searching, and had to really make some changes in my life, and kind of do some different things that for me gave me some peace, and put some better mojo into the universe, positive vibes into the verse. Do more good things for people. Be a better dad. Be a better husband. Be a better friend. Be a better person. Be more respectful. And I did that. And it's kind of funny, when I did make those changes, and I did kind of put a little Jesus into my life, and understand there's a higher power, there's a bigger purpose. Um, Good things started happening to me, and the Hall of Fame called. And from that, has created a lot of peace. I will tell you, I feel very different as a person. I feel very different as a hockey player walking into an arena as a Hall of Famer. I take very, very seriously the responsibility of that crest, and that emblem of the hundreds of players that are in that building, that are enshrined on the walls. So I take that seriously, and um, every day I have to be on guard, on my guard of things that will have a representation on that. And my life is way better because of it. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to have that nomination bestowed on me, and I'm very grateful to have the family that I have, to have the wife that I have, to have the two kids that I have, and have the friends that I have. And there's not a day that doesn't go by where I don't give thanks for that. But it takes work. It takes work. It's not doesn't just come to you. You have to. It's an everyday process, and I look forward to that every morning.
Mm. That's amazing. Like that's amazing right there. You scored 1,300 points, 500 goals. You played over 1,000 games in the NHL. Everyone looks at that as a Hall of Fame career, and it is obviously. But that wait, that long wait to get there, sounds like it changed your life.
It really did. And you know what they say? They say sometimes, all good things that come to those who wait. I understand what that means more now.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Because when I got the call, I did not realize how much it would affect me, how powerful it hit me, and how emotional that I was when it happened. And I'm very thankful for that feeling, because for the longest time I didn't think that I would have that feeling, and I'm really happy that I was able to have that feeling of total gratitude and amazement and satisfaction over getting that call. It was an honor. It was really cool. No question about it.
Mm. And like you said before, it kind of opens your eyes about the things that really matter, and your family and community, the community around hockey. You've been really embraced by the Blackhawks. You do Blackhawks alumni events. You and Chelios are there at the forefront all the time. Obviously that emotional moment you had when they won the cup against your other former team, the Flyers.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
what does it mean to be embraced by, I'm a Bruins guy, but like, come
Yep.
on, the Blackhawks are one of the great organizations, great fan bases, great hockey.
It's 100%, 100%. Well, growing up a Bruins fan, obviously I have respect for the original six. To be drafted to an original six team is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Flyers, I can't tell you my love for the Flyers and their fans and what they did for me. I had a bond with every fan base that I played for, and it was very strong. It was very passionate, and it was very real. But to have a relationship with a team that drafted you, a team like the Hawks, where I spent 9 years, my glory years. And for the longest time, I had a very tumultuous and um, not a very good relationship with the Hawks for
Yeah.
a lot of reasons, which I brought up in my Hall of Fame speech, and I got off my chest, which was awesome for me, to be able to be liberated in that. But to go back and now be an ambassador for that team that you love so much, to walk into that United Center and to literally feel like part of that team again, and to walk around and be accepted and feel like I am the representation of that team again. That's that's a gift I can't even tell you, the gratitude that I have for that, and I will cherish that. And every time I walk in there, I will remember what that feeling is like and why I'm there. It's pretty cool.
And it's a deserved spot on that pantheon. Like, we got to say, obviously your great career, you're part of some really, really good Blackhawks teams. So that's just awesome to hear. That's so awesome. A couple more quick rapid fire before we get you out of here. A couple rapid fire questions on your career. I do want to know, because you played, the beginning of your career was right at the end of the great old barns, right? You played in all of them. So what was your favorite old barn to play in the NHL?
Well, the Chicago Stadium, there'll never be a building like that. I got to play there 6 years. It was the most rowdy, most intense, one of the most fearful buildings of all time to play in. Whether you were a visitor or even a nervous, intimidated home player, right in front of those fans. It was an amazing place. The anthem, the roar of the crowd. This madhouse on Madison for a reason. I always loved going into Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens and Montreal Forum. These two cities that had so much history, the players that played there, and not only that, but to play in front of the people, and their knowledge of the game, and to play well in those buildings. I'll never forget the first time I walked into the Montreal Forum, and I literally couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe my first game. I was so nervous. And then to have the ability to play in the world's most famous arena in Madison Square Garden, some of the experiences I had in there, you can't reinvent the old barns. You can't reinvent the chemistry, the history, the ambiance, the feeling, and the atmosphere that those places generated. It was awesome.
Gosh, you're making me jealous. I didn't get to go to them, so you're really making me jealous.
You missed out. Trust me.
I know.
You missed out.
If I could do it, as I'm a huge all four pro sports, I'm such a diehard. Obviously, what it's like here in Boston. We don't really have much of a choice. But if I could do anything, like go back in time, just the late 80s, early 90s, Bruins, Canadians, old Boston Garden, Cam Neely, Ray Bork, like that, I'd do it in a second. So most underrated player that you played with.
Whoa.
Because then I'm going to do against after this.
Yeah, that's so tough. I played with so many great players. I would say on the defensive side, Teppo Numminen was probably one of the best non-talked about defensemen in the game. What he was able to do and how good a player he was. He never got the accolades that he probably should have. He is probably the one guy that steps to mind first. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Most underrated player you played against in your long career.
Whew, gosh, my goodness, you just throwing some crazy
Look, the
stuff
the
at me.
weather's too nice out there, JR. I got to make you think a little bit. I got to keep you on your toes just a bit.
Yeah,
Life's easy in
man.
San Diego.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Um, Gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, underrated players I play against. I would say probably the game's so good. I would probably say a quarter of the players that I played against were underrated. A lot of the players that didn't get the accolades of the how well that they played, um, their I think their importance to the team and some of the things that they did. Um, I really couldn't. There's not a one
We
person
can
that I
pa-
would say was
we
most.
can pass. We can
Yeah,
pass.
we got to pass on that one.
All right, we could do that with Jeremy Roenick passing the puck here. Let's talk about. I'm a big hockey sweaters guy. You played for a lot of team. Well, not a lot of teams, but you played under a lot of good sweaters. What was your favorite sweater that you wore in the NHL?
Well, you can't beat the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are the best uniform, the best sweaters of all time.
Home whites,
Just
man.
classic. I like the Reds.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
a big red Blackhawks, and I will tell you, my other favorite jersey is the first generation Kachina Phoenix jersey. Just
Yes.
such an out
Yes.
of the box, crazy, not traditional, and it grew on you. It looked so ugly the first time I saw it, but then I have one in my house. Um, it's a collector's item that I think that is hard to beat in terms of
Oh.
the magnitude of how cool that jersey is.
Oh man, that's iconic, man. And that 97, which I
Yep,
found out recently, you were the first player in NHL history to wear 97, which is
that's right.
now
That's
iconic
right. Yep.
for
Yeah,
you and
that
David.
was the year my I was got traded, and that was the year my son was born. So it was only right to go to 97. I will tell you another jersey that is iconic to me is the Hartford Whalers jersey. The
Mm.
Hartford Whaler logo is one that I'll always remember. I grew up on the Hartford Whalers as well as the Boston Bruins, so it's another jersey that I think is pretty iconic.
Unbelievable, man. The
Mm.
Hartford Whalers one. You can't replicate how good that logo is.
Nope, nope.
All right, last thing. Last thing here, and I'm putting you on the spot as I've done with the last couple, so I don't feel as bad, but
Mhm.
putting you on the spot here. Two other forwards, two defensemen, and a goalie. Jeremy Roenick's dream team that he played with.
That played with
Yeah.
um, Tony Monty, Keith Kachuk on front.
Yeah.
And I would say Chris. Well, and I'd have to throw maybe Joe Thornton in there too, maybe an alternate.
Okay, sure.
Chris
Extra
Chel- Chris
attacker
Chris
when we
yeah
pull the
Chris
goalie.
Chelios Chris Chelios for sure on defense. And other defensemen, I would probably throw in. Let's see. Like I said, I'd probably throw in Teppo Newman in
All right.
as another teammate defenseman that was just unbelievable, and Eddie Belfour in goal.
Of course. Eddie the
Mhm.
Eagle, baby. Yeah.
Yep,
Gotta
yep.
have him. Man, that must have been a charged up locker room with you and Eddie and Mike Keenan and Chris Chelios kind of holding down the fort, man. That must have been
Yeah,
one heck of a locker room that you
it
guys had in
was
Chicago.
unbelievable. We had a couple players smoking cigarettes in the locker room, getting ready to go out for in between periods. So it was definitely a different generation, different time.
Hell yeah. Hell
Hmm.
yeah. And now speaking of that, you might have some guys, most guys do beer league. You might be doing a whiskey league hockey, because you're big in the
Yeah,
whiskey business now, man. I got to try this. Tell me about it.
yeah. So I own, and I'm not just not the face of it. I started a company with a couple buddies of mine, and it's called Whiskey in the Wild, and we created the greatest blend whiskey that is chocolate and a chocolate orange whiskey. That is the greatest, no cringe, no burn sensation
All
of a
right.
whiskey that you'll ever have. And it's you're drinking a chocolate whiskey when you take a sip of my whiskey. I highly suggest whiskeyinthewild.com. Check it out. Get it for a gift. Every bottle comes with a flask. We have a new bottle coming out in March, which is going to be one of the coolest stainless steel bottles that you can run over it and it won't break. I highly suggest everybody take a look at this. Grab it, order it online. It'll get delivered right to your house. Um, I will guarantee you, whether you're a female or a male, whether you like whiskey, whether you don't, that'll be one of the best drinking experiences you'll ever have.
That's huge. That's huge because I suck at giving gifts. But
Mhm.
this is perfect. This
It makes for a great
I can
gift.
hand out.
It's a
That's
great
for
gift.
sure.
Yeah,
And,
great
you've
gift.
kind of put your fingers in the business world as well. Am I right in that?
Yeah, so I also started a company called Paychain X, and it's
Yeah.
in the merchant services blockchain world. So my company was one of the first companies ever to automate the merchant services process, which pretty much takes a lot of the people that don't need to be in the process out of the equation. The people that are sticking their hands in the cookie jars and taking some of these fees, these high, crazy credit card fees that all these companies and these merchants have to pay. So what I do is I come in with the blockchain, I secure the data, make sure the data is safe. I move the data faster, and I take those fees and I bring them down for the merchant so that they can make a little bit more money on their business, but also protect the customer's data when you put that credit card into a payment slot, or when you enter that number onto a computer for an e-commerce. So Paychain X, if anybody owns a company that wants to find out how to save some money on their merchant services fees, I'm the guy to call. Paychain X.
You're kind of like the goalie now. You're scoring goals for so long. Now you're playing goalie for people with their money. I love that.
Just like you have to prepare yourself for a game in professional hockey and professional sports, you have to prepare yourself for life, and that's by staying busy and getting into business. And once the brain stops, you stop. So that's not happening with me.
Yeah. Oh, it certainly is. It certainly is not. And I'm so thankful that you ended up giving so much time here. I mean, I could have gone all day with you. Really appreciate Jeremy Roenick, the Hall of Famer, taking the time today on the Wicked Boston Show. Jeremy, you stay well. I know that's not going to be too tough a task out there in San Diego. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go hit the links. Appreciate it. Take
care.
There
he goes. We'll see you. Jeremy Roenick going out to hit the links. And guys, why don't you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button? How awesome was that? The Hockey Hall of Famer, Jeremy Roenick. Thanks to him. Thanks to you guys for tuning in. Of course, you can find us on YouTube 5 days a week and then wherever you get your podcasts as well.